I returned home unexpectedly, but the moans from the bedroom froze me in the hallway. It wasn't just the sound that shattered me. It was the sight in my husband's arms that made my world collapse. The Chicago night was a beast, all teeth and claws, as I floored the gas pedal of my beat-up Toyota Corolla, weaving through the neon-lit streets of Lakeview. My heart jackhammered against my ribs, the echo of the carjacker's knife glinting in the parking garage still burning in my mind. I'd gotten lucky, too damn lucky, when that creep underestimated me, thinking a paralegal in a pencil skirt couldn't sprint. I'd bolted, leaving him cursing in the shadows of the multi-level lot, my pulse screaming louder than the L train overhead. Now, safe behind the triple-locked door of my high-rise apartment, I leaned against the cold steel frame, gasping like I'd run a marathon. My hands shook as I fumbled through my purse for my keys. Nothing. Zilch. Nada. My keys were gone, probably still sitting on my dresser from when I'd rushed out for a client meeting at the law firm. "You've got to be kidding me," I muttered, the words tasting like the stale coffee I'd chugged at noon. The apartment was too quiet, the kind of quiet that makes your skin crawl, like the city itself was holding its breath. My footsteps echoed on the hardwood floors, each one a gunshot in the stillness as I crossed the open-plan living room, the Chicago skyline winking through floor-to-ceiling windows. Lakeview's lights usually felt like a warm hug, but tonight they looked cold, distant, like eyes watching me from across the void. I shook off the paranoia, or tried to, and headed for the stairs, my bare feet sticking slightly to the polished wood. I'd kicked off my heels at the door, too rattled to care about scuffing the floor Michael always griped about. Michael. My fiancé. The guy who'd promised me forever over deep dish pizza at Lou Malnati's last summer. I could still see his crooked smile, the way he'd smeared sauce on his chin and laughed it off. That felt like a lifetime ago. Halfway up the stairs, a flicker of movement outside the window stopped me cold. A shadow, human-shaped, deliberate, darted across the fire escape and vanished into the dark. My breath caught, the carjacking flashing back like a bad movie reel. Was someone following me? Watching me? I crept to the window, heart in my throat. But the alley below was empty, just the usual dumpster cats and flickering streetlights. "Get it together, Emily," I whispered, rubbing my arms against the goosebumps. Chicago was a big city, shadows moved. Didn't mean they were after me. Right, at the top of the stairs, I froze. My bedroom door was cracked open, a sliver of light spilling into the hallway. Voices, low, intimate, wrong, drifted through the gap. Michael's voice, smooth as bourbon, and another, sharper, like a knife cutting through silk. "Lauren. My sister. My supposed twin. She has no clue, does she?" Lauren's words hit me like a slap, her tone dripping with something between pity and scorn. I edged closer, my bare feet silent on the rug, and peeked through the crack. My bed, our bed, was a tangle of sheets, Michael's shirt half unbuttoned, Lauren's blonde hair spilling across my pillow like she owned it. My stomach lurched, bow rising as I pressed myself against the wall, fighting to keep my breathing quiet. "She fell for every damn excuse," Lauren said, her laugh sharp enough to cut glass. "Those late-night casework sessions? God, Emily's so gullible it's almost sad." Michael chuckled, his fingers tracing Lauren's arm. "Small-town naivety, babe. Makes it easy. She still thinks her dad's estate was just a house in Evanston and some loose change." My knees buckled, and I slid down the wall, the textured wallpaper scraping my back. "Estate? What estate?" "Our dad, Robert, died 3 years ago, leaving Mom, Diane, everything. Or so I'd been told." My mind raced, replaying every family dinner, every tight-lipped smile from Diane, every time Lauren got the bigger slice of pie while I got the crumbs. Something was wrong, rotten, and it wasn't just the affair unfolding in my bedroom. "Speaking of the estate," Lauren said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "when are we telling her about the trust fund? Or the letters?" "Never," Michael replied, his tone cold as the Chicago winter. "She doesn't need to know her dad left her $500,000. Diane's got it handled. Paid off that lawyer to keep it quiet." $500,000? My head spun, the words slicing through me like shrapnel. My dad, the guy who'd taught me to ride a bike in the cul-de-sac, had left me money? And Diane, my mom, hid it? My phone buzzed in my pocket, jolting me. I fumbled it out, hands trembling, and stared at the screen. An anonymous text: "You're being played. Check the safe." My blood ran cold. Someone knew. Someone was watching. I glanced at the bedroom door, the voices still murmuring, and made a split-second decision. I couldn't stay here, not with them plotting in my bed, not with shadows lurking outside my window. I crept downstairs, grabbed my purse, and slipped out the front door, my bare feet hitting the cold concrete of the hallway. The elevator ride to the lobby felt like a descent into hell, each floor ticking by like a countdown to something I wasn't ready for. Outside, the Chicago wind slapped my face, and I hailed a cab, my mind a tornado of betrayal and questions. Rose Hill Cemetery, I told the driver, my voice steadier than I felt. I needed answers, and the only place I could think to start was Dad's grave. The cemetery was a ghost town, the moon casting long shadows across the headstones. I knelt by Dad's marker, Robert Carter, beloved husband and father, and whispered, "What did you do, Dad? What did you hide from me?" My phone buzzed again. Another text from the anonymous number, "Look closer. He's not who you think." I froze, scanning the darkness. A car engine revved nearby, headlights sweeping across the graves before speeding off. My heart pounded. Was that the same shadow from my fire escape? I clutched my purse, the weight of my dad's secrets heavier than ever. Back in the cab, I directed the driver to Diane's house in Evanston, the suburban sprawl a stark contrast to the city's chaos. Diane, a retired schoolteacher with a penchant for Pinot Grigio and passive-aggressive jabs, was waiting in her kitchen, her silver hair perfect despite the late hour. "Emily, you look like you've seen a ghost," she said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "I need answers, Mom," I said, cutting through the small talk. "About Dad's will. About me." Her hand stilled on her coffee mug, her face paling. "What are you talking about? Don't play dumb." "I heard Michael and Lauren. I know about the trust fund. I know you hid something." Diane's eyes darted to the doorway, like she expected someone to burst in. "You're upset, Emily. Let's talk tomorrow." "No. Now." I leaned forward, my voice shaking but firm. "Who's Sophia Martinez?" The mug slipped from her hands, shattering on the tile. Brown liquid pooled like blood. "How did you tell me the truth, Mom? Who am I?" Diane sagged against the counter, aging a decade in seconds. "Sophia was your father's first wife. Your real mother. She died in a car crash when you were 6 months old. I was his secretary. His mistress." The room spun. I gripped the table, my nails digging into the wood. "You raised me. You said I was your daughter. You said Lauren and I were twins." "We lied," she whispered. "It was easier than explaining. You're 18 months older than Lauren. Sophia's daughter. Not mine." "And the trust fund?" My voice cracked. "Dad left me half of everything, didn't he?" Diane nodded, tears streaming down her face. "He wanted you to have it. But I couldn't. Lauren needed what? My money?" I stood, my chair scraping the floor. "Where's the will? The real one?" "In his study. The safe behind the bookshelf. Combinations his birthday." I stormed through the house I'd grown up in, past photos of a family I'd never really belonged to. The safe was exactly where she said, hidden behind dusty law books. Inside, I found it, Sophia's death certificate, my real birth certificate. Listing Sophia Martinez as my mother, and Dad's will, handwritten, clear as day. Half to Emily, half to Lauren. And letters, dozens of them, in Sophia's elegant script, detailing her fear of Dad's infidelity, her suspicion that he was planning something sinister. One line burned into my brain: "If I die, it's not an accident." I drove back to my apartment, my hands shaking on the wheel. When I pulled into the parking lot, my stomach dropped. My front door was ajar, the lock splintered. Inside, my place was a war zone, drawers yanked open, papers strewn across the floor, a note scrawled in black marker on my kitchen counter: "Stop digging or you're next." My breath hitched. Whoever sent that anonymous text wasn't just watching, they were here. I grabbed what I could: Sophia's letters, the will, my laptop, and bolted to the Marriott downtown. My phone buzzed again as I checked in, another anonymous message: "They're closer than you think." I called Sarah, my best friend and a private investigator who'd seen me through every breakup and bad day since college. "Sarah, I'm in deep," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I need your help." "Name it," she said, no hesitation. "I need you to dig into Diane and Lauren. Bank records, anything. They stole $500,000 from me. And I think they're dangerous." Sarah's silence told me she was already on it. By morning, she'd uncovered a trail of transactions: Diane's new Tesla, Lauren's Gold Coast condo, all paid with my trust fund money. "There's more," Sarah said. "Diane's been cozy with a lawyer tied to some shady Chicago outfits. You need to be careful, Em." I met with James Whitaker, the attorney who'd handled Dad's estate, in his Loop office. He was a silver-haired man in his 60s, polished but nervous, his eyes darting to the door when I mentioned the will. "I made a mistake," he admitted, his voice low. "Diane came to me, said you couldn't handle the money. Said you were unstable. I forged the documents." "Unstable?" I laughed, bitter. "You believed her? She had connections," he said, glancing at his desk like it might swallow him. "People who could ruin me." As I left his office, a man in a leather jacket blocked my path, his breath hot on my face. "Drop this, lady, or you won't walk away next time." My knees shook, but I pushed past him, my heart racing as I hailed a cab. Chicago streets felt like a maze closing in, every corner hiding a threat. Back at the hotel, I planned my next move. I needed evidence, hard, undeniable proof. I bought a hidden recorder from a sketchy electronics shop in Wicker Park, my hands sweaty as I set it up behind a picture frame in my apartment's living room. Then I called Diane, Lauren, and Michael, inviting them for a reconciliation dinner. "We need to clear the air," I said, my voice sweet as poison. They agreed, probably thinking they could charm their way out of this. That night, they arrived together, Diane clutching her purse like a shield, Lauren's eyes narrowed, Michael's smile too tight. We sat in the living room, the recorder humming. Silently. "I owe you an apology," I started, pouring wine with a steady hand. "I overreacted at Mom's. Family's complicated, right?" Diane nodded, cautious. "We all have bad days, Emily." "I get it now," I said, leaning in. "Like when Dad died, Mom, you had to handle all that legal stuff. Must have been tough, sorting through his secrets." Her glass trembled. "He was private about money. Did you find everything?" I pressed. "No hidden accounts? No trust funds?" Michael shifted, his jaw tight. "Why would you think that?" "Just curious," I said, smiling. "Dad worked hard. Seems like he'd leave more than a house in Evanston." "There was plenty," Lauren snapped. "Mom and I are fine. For all of us, though?" I tilted my head. "I found some letters in his study. About my inheritance." The room went still. Diane's face drained of color. Michael's eyes flicked to Lauren. "What letters?" he asked, his voice low. "From Dad." "To me. About a trust fund. $500,000. "That's impossible," Diane said, but her voice cracked. Maybe he didn't tell you," I cut in. "Because he knew you'd hide it." Lauren stood, her wineglass clinking on the table. "This is bullshit, Emily. You're paranoid." "Am I? Or was the will reading a performance?" "I know about Sophia, Mom. I know I'm not your daughter." Diane's sob broke the silence. "Emily, please, tell me," I demanded. "Who was Sophia Martinez?" "She was your mother," Diane whispered. "Your father's first wife. I took you in after she died." "And lied to me for 28 years, I said. "Stole my money. Let Lauren and Michael play me for a fool." Michael stood, his face hard. "You're unhinged, Emily. This is crazy talk." "Crazy?" I pulled out the recorder, holding it up. "I've got every word. Your affair, the fraud, the lies. All of it." Lauren lunged for the device, but I stepped back. "Don't," I said. "I'm going to the police. The DA. Everyone." Diane was crying, Lauren cursing, Michael pleading. I walked out, leaving them in my apartment, their world crumbling. The Chicago night swallowed me as I drove to the hotel, the recorder burning a hole in my purse. Justice was coming, but at what cost? The city felt like it was watching, waiting for my next move, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still in the crosshairs. The Marriott's sterile glow felt like a cage, the hum of the mini fridge mocking my racing thoughts as I clutched the recorder, its tiny red light still blinking like a heartbeat. I'd just blown up my life, Diane's tear-streaked face, Lauren's venomous glare, Michael's desperate pleas replaying in my mind like a horror flick on loop. The Chicago skyline beyond my window was a glittering lie, hiding the city's underbelly where my family's secrets festered. My phone buzzed relentlessly, texts from Michael begging to talk, voicemails from Lauren dripping with fake concern, and a single cryptic message from that anonymous number: "Keep going." "They're scared now." Scared? Good. They should be. But the knot in my stomach told me this was only the beginning, and the shadowy figure on my fire escape, the ransacked apartment, the thug at Whitaker's office, they weren't random. Someone was circling, and I was the prey that I barely slept. The recorder under my pillow like a loaded gun. By dawn, I was wired on hotel coffee, pacing the room as I dialed Sarah. "You got anything new?" I asked, my voice raw. You're not gonna like this," Sarah said, her tone clipped. "Diane's been wiring money to a shell company linked to a guy named Tony Russo. Small-time mob lawyer. Runs with some heavy hitters in the West Side." I'm digging deeper, but this is bad news. "Mob?" I sank onto the bed, my head spinning. "You're saying my mom's tied to the freaking mafia?" "Not saying it's the Sopranos, but it's not choir practice either. Russo's got a rap sheet: extortion, money laundering. Diane's been paying him for years. Could be hush money for the will, or something worse. Worse. Like Sophia's car crash. My real mother's death, which her letters hinted wasn't an accident." I gripped the recorder tighter. "Sarah, I need to nail them. Tonight's recording, it's gold, right?" "It's dynamite," she said. But you need a lawyer, not just a PI. Someone who can turn this into a case before Russo's crew shuts you up. I called Rachel Nguyen, a bulldog attorney Sarah swore by, who agreed to meet me at a dive bar in Logan Square. The place smelled of stale beer and regret, but Rachel's sharp eyes cut through the haze. She was in her 40s, with a no-nonsense vibe and a reputation for shredding corrupt suits in court. I slid the recorder across the table, along with Sophia's letters and Dad's will. "This is everything," I said. "My family stole $500,000 from me. And I think my dad killed my real mom." Rachel's eyebrow arched as she skimmed the documents, her fingers pausing on Sophia's final letter. "If I die, it's not an accident." "This is heavy, Emily," she said, her voice low. "Fraud, forgery, conspiracy, child's play compared to murder. You sure you want to open this can of worms?" "I don't have a choice," I said. "They've been lying to me my whole life. Diane raised me like a knockoff daughter, Lauren's screwing my fiancé, and Michael's in it for the cash. I want justice." Rachel nodded, her eyes glinting like a shark smelling blood. "We start with the fraud. The recordings. Solid, Diane's confession, Lauren's plot to have you committed, Michael's affair. We'll file charges, but the murder angle needs more. Sophia's letters are compelling, but not proof. We need hard evidence." "Like what?" I asked, my stomach twisting. "Police reports from the crash. Autopsy records. Witnesses. If your dad tampered with her car, there's a trail. I'll get my investigator on it, but Emily, watch your back. If Diane's tied to Russo, this isn't just family drama." I left the bar with a plan but no peace. Social media was already ablaze. Someone had leaked snippets of the dinner confrontation, probably Lauren spinning her narrative. Twitter was a war zone. Hashtag Justice for Emily trended alongside hashtag Emily the Vulture, with strangers calling me a victim or a gold-digging psycho. One tweet stuck out: "She's tearing her family apart for money." Disgusting. My chest tightened. Was I the bad guy here? I'd only wanted the truth, but the truth was a wrecking ball, and I was swinging it blind. Back at the hotel, I got a call from my boss at the law firm. "Emily, we need to talk," he said, his tone cold. "This situation with your family. It's a conflict of interest. We're letting you go." "Letting me go?" I choked. "I've been with you for 3 years. I'm good at my job." "It's not about your work," he said. "Clients are nervous. The firm's reputation is at stake. Clear out your desk by tomorrow." I hung up, my world crumbling. No job, no home I could safely return to, and a family that wanted me silenced, or worse. I opened my laptop, scrolling through the hate online, when a new anonymous text popped up: "Check First Chicago Bank. Sophia's box. Keys with the letters." My pulse spiked. A safety deposit box? I rifled through Sophia's letters, finding a small key taped inside an envelope. Its label faded but legible: First Chicago, Box 472. The bank was a fortress in the Loop, all marble and security guards who eyed me like I was casing the joint. I showed the key and my birth certificate, my hands sweaty as the clerk led me to the vault. Box 472 was heavy, and when I opened it, my breath caught. Inside was Sophia's journal, its pages yellowed but filled with her tight, urgent handwriting. She detailed Robert's abuse, his rages, his threats, his obsession with her life insurance. One entry, dated 2 days before her death, read: "He knows I'm leaving. I saw him under my car last night. I'm taking Emily to Mexico tomorrow. If I don't make it, tell the police." My eyes burned, tears blurring the ink. Sophia had fought for me, and she'd paid with her life. I called Detective Maria Lopez, a homicide cop Sarah recommended, and met her at a coffee shop in Pilsen. Lopez was in her 40s, with kind eyes but a grip like steel when she shook my hand. I handed her the journal, my voice shaking as I recounted Sophia's fears. "My dad killed her," I said. "And Diane knew. She's been covering it up for 30 years. Lopez flipped through the journal, her expression unreadable. "This is serious, Emily. We'll reopen the case, but it's old, 1995. Witnesses are gone, evidence is thin. We'll need to exhume Sophia's body, re-examine the crash site. You okay with that?" I nodded, though the thought made my skin crawl. Whatever it takes. As I drove back to the hotel, my brakes felt spongy. I shrugged it off: old car, bad roads, until I hit the Kennedy Expressway. The pedal went soft, then nothing. My heart lurched as the car ahead loomed closer. I yanked the wheel, swerving onto the shoulder, horns blaring as I skidded to a stop, inches from a guardrail. My hands shook as I called a tow truck, Lopez's words echoing: "If Diane's tied to Russo, this isn't just family drama." Was this an accident, or had someone tampered with my car, just like Sophia's? The next morning, Lopez called. "Your brakes were cut," she said, her voice grim. "Clean job. Someone knew what they were doing." We're treating this as attempted murder. Attempted, I couldn't finish the sentence. My own family, or Russo's goons, wanted me dead. I moved to a new hotel, paying cash, my paranoia at fever pitch. Every creak in the hallway, every stranger's glance felt like a threat. I kept Sophia's journal close, its weight a reminder of why I couldn't stop. Weeks later, the arrests hit like a thunderclap. Police swarmed Diane's Evanston house, cuffing her as neighbors gawked. Lauren was dragged from her Gold Coast condo, screaming about her rights. Michael was nabbed at his law office, his tie askew as cameras flashed. The charges were a laundry list: fraud, forgery, conspiracy, and for Diane, accessory to murder after the fact. Lopez had found bank records tying Diane to payments to Russo's firm, dated just after Sophia's crash. The media went feral, dubbing it the Chicago betrayal trial. I was painted as both a tragic hero and a greedy instigator, my face plastered on every newsstand. A tabloid dug up my college therapy records, splashing headlines about my anxiety. Is Emily Carter unstable? The online mob pounced, half cheering my fight, half calling me a liar chasing clout. The trial was a circus, held in a Cook County courtroom packed with reporters and rubberneckers. Rachel Gwynn was a machine, dismantling Diane's sob story about protecting Lauren. Diane took the stand, her silver hair limp, her eyes hollow. I loved Robert, she said, tears streaming. I didn't know he'd hurt Sophia. I took care of Emily. Doesn't that count? Rachel pounced. You stole her inheritance. You lied about her mother's death. You paid a mob lawyer to cover it up. That's not love, Mrs. Carter. That's theft. The courtroom gasped when Rachel played the dinner recording, Diane's voice admitting she hid the trust fund, Lauren's plot to have me committed, Michael's smug confession about the affair. The jury's faces hardened, but the public split wider. Pro-Emily rallies clogged Michigan Avenue, chanting "Justice for Sophia," while Diane's supporters, mostly Evanston moms and church friends, picketed, holding signs, "Emily's tearing families apart." Then came the bombshell. During a recess, Diane collapsed in the courtroom, clutching her chest. Paramedics rushed in, but she was gone, a stroke, the coroner said. The news hit like a grenade. Social media exploded with sympathy for Diane, painting her as a grieving widow driven to desperation. Hashtag RIP Diane trended, with posts calling me a monster who'd hounded an old woman to death. I sat in my hotel room, staring at the headlines. Guilt gnawing at me. Had I pushed too hard? Was this my fault? Rachel pulled me out of the spiral. Don't let them gaslight you, she said. Diane made her choices. You're not the villain here. The trial resumed, Lauren and Michael taking the fall. Lauren's defense, claiming she was protecting her mom, crumbled under Rachel's cross-examination. You plan to have Emily committed, Rachel said, her voice icy. You slept with her fiancé. You spent her money. That's protection? Lauren's 8-year sentence and Michael's 6 felt like a hollow victory. The civil suit was cleaner. I won $600,000, the trust fund plus penalties, and funneled it into a foundation for victims of family fraud. But the real fight was Sophia's case. Lopez's team found traces of tampering on Sophia's exhumed car wreckage, and a retired mechanic came forward, admitting he'd been paid by a guy matching Robert's description to cut her brakes. My dad was a murderer, and Diane had known. I held a memorial for Sophia at St. Mary's in Pilsen, where she'd been baptized. Her sister, Rosa, flew in from Mexico, her face so like Sophia's it stole my breath. She'd be proud, Rosa said, hugging me. You gave her justice. As I laid white roses on Sophia's new headstone, an anonymous mourner slipped a note into my hand. There's more. Ask about Robert's partner. My blood ran cold. Partner? Another secret? I scanned the crowd, but the figure was gone, swallowed by the Chicago dusk. The city's pulse thrummed around me, a promise and a threat. I'd won this battle, but the war wasn't over. Sophia's truth had set me free, but it had also lit a fuse, and I was ready to follow it to the end, wherever it led.